Angie. I'm so excited to have you today, and we've met previously, and I just love the service that you provide, and I think that there is a lot to be learned about it. So I wanted to start with, maybe could you tell us a little bit about Sonoran Valley Home Care and a little bit about you as well?
Absolutely. Well, I've actually been in the field for about 30 years doing case management, and originally from California. Moved here a couple of years ago, got a degree in gerontology, actually had a home care company for 17 years. So I'm kind of know the field a little bit, but sold that business in 2008 and moved to Huntington Beach. Thought I was going to retire, and you can only lay out in the sun so much, right? So I missed it, got back into the field of doing care management, and decided that my husband and I were going to move to Arizona, originally thinking about buying like a group home or something. But I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to get back into care management. Let's see where God leads us, because you just never know. And it's what I know, and it's what I love. And so I had started working for a company at that time, was Nurse Next Door, which the owner, Matt, it was a franchise, Matt Strang and his wife, Michelle, were the owners. And so they decided, I kind of followed along, that they wanted to venture out on their own rather than doing a franchise, because there's so much more that we can offer by being independent. And so we left Nurse Next Door. And then so Sonoran Valley is probably, I'd say, coming up on a year, but we have grown so rapidly. And I think it's just because the reputation, there's so many home care companies here in this valley, and we all kind of do the same thing, but really it's about the management. And so I think that has followed us. And again, we are just growing so rapidly. But I'm also on the board of the ASNAHA, so I am a board member, which I'm really proud to say, because the thing about it is that home care companies are not really, I should say, licensed in Arizona. So the fact that there's not a whole lot of regulations. I think this is where the ASNAHA comes into place, because they have a high standard. So anybody that's looking for home care, and I'm going to kind of go over that here too, regarding what to look for as you're trying to find that provider of service. And one of them would be, you can just go to the website, and it's aznha.com, ASNAHA, and you can see a list of all of the home care companies there that are part of this organization. And they have specific requirements. So they have to, number one, be employer-based, which is really important. So, the independent contractors, it takes away that liability. So the employers take on that liability. So it's kind of nice, because then that way families can rest assured that they're a little bit more protected. So,
but not to interrupt, but so going back to the ASNA, because like people that aren't in the field, they may not understand. So that is an actual regulatory.
Are you talking about the ASNAHA?
Yeah, ASNAHA. Can you kind of explain what ASNAHA is, just so for people who don't know, who, like, I'm not very familiar with ASNAHA. So
right. Well, it's an organization. It's a nonprofit, but it's it's founded by people that have home care companies, or people that are wanting to be a part of the community and set the standards for home care. Okay. And so, of course, several of the other requirements would be that all of their caregivers or employees have criminal background checks, that they, are fingerprinted, that they have drug screens. Of course, checking references, CPR, first aid, TB test. And so there's a list of several things that, that they have to meet in order to be part of ASNAHA. And it's not, it's not just sending a warm body and someone to sit there and make grandma a sandwich and keep her company, which is also nice to do. And that's part of our companionship. But it's really important to have all of that, knowing that these are the people that are coming into your home and have passed that screening process.
Absolutely. Oh, that's really nice. That gives you a lot of peace of mind.
Absolutely. So, and then the owner, I think I mentioned Matt and Michelle, they are he's actually a physical therapist, and they have two offices, and it's called Total Body Rehab. So one is in Mesa and the other is in Gilbert, and they're just phenomenal people to work for. I just love them dearly. And they also have a gymnasium for children, and it's so nice to see all of these little kids that are, you know, out there staying active in the community. And so they are actually still open. So, but anyways, yeah. So tell me what you want to know, and I'll just fill
Well,
you in here.
so, I have chronic illness. So I have pericarditis. And so for me, I'm going to ask some questions that are going to be kind of geared to the group of members that do have a chronic illness that are following this page. So one of the things I want to know is that with a chronic illness, like when would I know it's the right time for in-home care? And do
Well,
I qualify with a chronic illness?
Well, that's a really good question. And, you know, most of our clients, of course, have chronic illnesses. And even though we are considered non-medical care, anybody that needs home care has some form of illness, you know, a health ailment that requires them to have that additional assistance. And so in one of my little handy dandy guides, which you'll make available to people, but there's an assessment that you can do by just asking yourself some of these questions is these are signs and symptoms of someone that may be needing some home care. So loneliness, isolation, and depression, especially right now with COVID, it is just so running so rampant with people just being depressed. I'm sorry, let me just turn off my phone here for a second.
Sorry, I don't understand.
Well, listen, and I'll explain it to you. Oh, that's funny. Okay, I think I got it. So, you know, and one of the services that we provide is companionship. So this could really help somebody that's, you know, experiencing the loneliness and depression. But often I'd say a lot of our clients have, you know, the chronic illnesses such as COPD, CHF, Alzheimer's, dementia, diabetes, and families are overwhelmed, you know, because they're having to work and then still take care of their loved ones. And so, and I often get questions, well, how do I know that, you know, it's the right time? And mom or dad may not be open to having a stranger into the house. And, you know, so I said, well, ask yourself some of these questions. And are they taking their medication as prescribed, which is a big issue, which then that kind of leads into other things. And so especially if they're not taking their medication and they have Alzheimer's, you know, you can already know what's going to happen with them increasing their dementia. The other thing is, do they have difficulty ambulating? Are they falling a lot? Are they having a difficult time dressing or poor nutrition? Maybe they can't cook anymore because they have Alzheimer's, and so it's not safe for them to cook any meals. That's when you'd want to have a companion to come in and cook for them. Housework, is it being neglected? Are you noticing that there's unpaid bills or piles of mail? And what's funny is that during the holidays is when we get calls, and that's when they notice these signs and symptoms, because they're like, I haven't seen mom or dad since, you know, last year, and we went for Christmas and I couldn't believe, you know, they're not doing the housekeeping anymore, and there was just bills piled up. And so again, you don't really think that these are signs or symptoms, but then you realize that yes, they need some additional help. So perhaps maybe they're recovering from surgery, or they no longer drive and they need some transportation. But so these are questions that you want to ask yourself. And as far as like chronic illnesses, you know, working with people like you, Patty, and we partner with people that either hospice, palliative care, home health, elder law attorneys, people that install ramps, pharmacies that deliver to homebound. I mean, we are looking for resources. So when I go into a home and I do an assessment, I'd say 99.9% of the time, they need more than just home care. They don't realize it yet. And then once they start talking and I do the assessment and ask about their health history, their, you know, their limitations, their medications, I start thinking about who I know that can help them with some of these other things that they, you know, may need. And So the nice thing is that they trust us. We're in their home. And so it's not like I'm just handing them a list or, back in the day, a phone book. But, these are people that we work with, and knowing that we partner with them, I am your biggest advocate. Oh, I know Patty, she's absolutely wonderful. She's an expert in her field and I trust her implicitly. We've worked with her for quite some time. And, and then I can introduce you into the plan of care, because so often they do need these other additional resources. And palliative care it's such a benefit, and so many people don't even realize what it is. And my mother, I just recently found out, was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. And it's been, I'm sorry, it's been really hard, because what's weird is that I can be a professional, and I've been doing this for 30 years, and I'll be in the field and I can talk to a family and make all the recommendations. And but when it's your own family, it's a total different ballgame. And I have to try to remember that I need to make decisions for mom that mom wants, not what I want. And I have to be, kind of step back and respect her wishes. And, I want her to do this, this, and this, and this. And, but, palliative and hospice, I know is going to be some options for her. And I've had to have that conversation with her. And what I find is, my hair. What I find is that I have that conversation often with a lot of our clients, because they don't understand when is it appropriate to introduce that extra support. And of course, when they hear the word hospice, they're just like, nope, we're not ready for that. So, and it's not like it used to be. So when I explain that to them, that it's just, if we look at this and take the word hospice out of it and put in just additional support, you now have a nurse that's coming into the home. We're all working together for that plan of care. Your loved one is in good hands, because, they take care of the medical, we take care of the non-medical, we communicate with each other. And, you just have to have specific health chronic illnesses to qualify. You can opt out at any time. And so
I'm going to interrupt you for just a second,
yeah,
because I think one of the main things too, and one of my main goals with this group, is to really get people to truly understand palliative versus hospice. And so with hospice care, that's a paid Medicare benefit where the hospice, and there's so many wonderful hospice companies to choose from in Arizona, but they come in and they take over and they take care of everything. They don't take over,
Right.
you're still in control, but everything's paid for through the hospice that is in relation to the diagnosis. Whereas palliative care, you're still very much independent. Like I'm on palliative care, like I'm a perfect example. So I'm on palliative care. And when I do need my medications or I do need additional services, that all still goes through my insurance, so it's not like somebody's coming in. I'm not anywhere near death. And I can say that sometimes I think, gosh, maybe I say it and it sounds like I'm being flippant about it. But I mean, I do face my own morbidity when I do think about my condition, and I do see how it has progressed, in just my age. But palliative care, that nurse coming in, they are going to be able to help my family have that conversation about hospice at the time when it's needed.
Exactly.
Years down the road. But we're going to have, it's going to be a more comfortable conversation for us. And what I love about your services is that right now I can benefit from your services, and I'm not ready for like around the clock care. I'm not ready for in-home care, not ready for hospice. But what is very appealing to me is when I hear things like, you guys can help with getting to the grocery store. You can help with, coming into the home and maybe preparing a meal for me once a week. I'll be honest with you, and my fellow, I'm going to call them spoonies out there that have chronic illness. We know that like getting in the shower and getting ready for the day, that can be enough to exhaust you to where you don't cook meals. I rarely cook dinner anymore because I just don't have the energy. So being a single woman, it might be nice to have somebody that can come in, even if it was once a week, and make me a home cooked meal. I would
Exactly.
love that. Like that's a layer of support that I think that people don't realize is out there. And we don't have to be in our 65 plus to qualify for that. Like
Exactly.
I'm only 50 years old, but I'll tell you what, if I was 40, I'd still take advantage of that service because,
Right.
and it's a lot
Absolutely.
cheaper than hiring a chef or somebody to, you know what I
Well,
mean?
and the good thing is that you can take that time knowing that, I mean, even if it's 4 hours, there's no long-term contract, so if you sign on with Sonoran Valley, I mean, it could be even just respite care 1 day a week. So you've got, me time. Because as you know, people that are caring for others, I mean, it can be very overwhelming and sometimes you just need a timeout. So we provide care from companionship, respite, part-time, all the way through 24/7 at end of life and that's when we work with hospice. So, and I've had people say, well, how can a caregiver help? And you just mentioned a few of them. And of course, having a companionship helps with depression, nutritious meals. Often we have clients that are on specific diets, diabetics. We do glucose monitoring. And when families hear, they're like, oh my gosh, that is just, now at least I know that they're eating the right meals and managing their glucose levels. And the other thing is, we do medication reminders. So with medication reminders, then, they're following their doctor's orders. So that is just, it's huge. Then assisting with bathing and grooming and dressing, because often they're weak, they are fall risks. Perhaps they just came out of a skilled nursing facility or a hospital. And, we can help them also with range of motion. So often they will already have physical therapy. So they have home health in place, which is another service that we, partner with. But the thing is that they come in intermittently, maybe, twice a week. So our caregivers that are there sometimes are there 5, 7, 24 hours a day. So we can help with those same exercises that a physical therapist has, prescribed for their loved one, the client. And we just don't call it PT because we're not physical therapists, but we call it range of motions, but they're the same exercises, which helps their mobility and their strength. And so, these are the type of things that we're able to do and how it's going to help.
I had no idea about that, Angie. I had no idea you could do that. That's amazing. You
Oh,
guys, I'm gonna
absolutely.
take my camera off for 1 second. I'll be right back. My little girl is being in the background crying.
Doing it to go out. No
Sweetheart.
worries.
Sorry about that, you guys. Okay.
And, since we're on that note, I wanted to share something with you as well, because which leads me into how having a caregiver can reduce the readmissions, to hospitals. And so I was talking to a social worker the other day, and she was saying that, they are now, the medical fields are discharge planners, case managers are realizing what a benefit it is to have home care upon discharge, because it does lessen the readmission rates. And one of the reasons how I believe that it does, and for us, we tend to chart everything on a daily basis. And so each one of our clients will have a binder like this. Now in the binder, we will have a specific plan of care, which I don't know if you can see that, if it shows it backwards, does it?
No, we can see it. Yeah.
Okay, so basically what'll happen is when we do the assessment, we find out what all of their health history is, and we've got all of their diagnosis here, emergency numbers, and then we will have a list of the ADLs, which are all listed. So the caregiver knows exactly what they need to do for that plan of care. Of course, we discuss it with them before they go there, but then they have it here to follow, which for this particular case would be assistance with transfers, bathing, showering, assistance with incontinent care, dressing, meal preparation, changing bed linen, housekeeping, which includes bathroom, living room, dishes, emptying the garbage, mopping, sweeping, vacuuming, doing laundry, assisting with medication. We also take vitals. And so this one is particularly a lengthy plan of care because they have a lot more needs. So, and if you can see here, so what we do is we're going to mark off on a daily basis the activities that we've completed. So whether it's preparing a meal or assisting with the shower, medication, I mean, everything will be listed here along with a summary of what has occurred on that shift. And of course, it's funny because most of my caregivers like, Angie, that spot is too small to write in. So we have a backside. So backside.
It's really nice, Angie, because that means I could come in if you were caring for one of my mom or my, I could come in and I could look at her book and I'm going to know exactly what's going on. That's really
Absolutely.
nice.
And then we have our little med chart. And again, they initial, these are the months, days of the month. The initial that was taken correctly. And then we've got our blood pressure log.
Wow.
And we have our meal log. See that?
Yep.
And then we also have our last is our glucose log.
And I'm thinking, Angie, this would even be a great tool that if I was taking my loved one to the doctor visit, I can bring my log with me. And oh my gosh, that is really nice.
Yes, so we really take pride in training our caregivers to do that type of charting because, I mean, you have to, it just makes sense. You've got somebody who's now eating nutritious meals and is following their diet plan. They're now taking their medications as prescribed. If they have hypertension, we're taking their vitals and we see that their, levels, and sometimes they might have to give their blood pressure medication depending on the level of their readings. So that can vary, and which is really important to document it. So all of these things in place is obviously is going to keep them from going back into the hospital because now we are also helping them from falling, with helping them with range of motion. And we do standby assistance, getting them in and out of bed and just, I mean, we really are there for everything from the personal care to the homemaking services. And I had somebody recently from a home health company say, I was going through your binder and I was able to find out so much. And I'm so grateful that it was there to view. And she says, you are our eyes and our ears. Because like I said, they come in intermittently and we're there sometimes, 24/7. So, and we communicate a lot with our caregivers as well, because we want to make sure that we know if there's any changes in medication or health history. Are they improving? Are they declining? Do we need to change that plan of care? And so I keep telling, all of our caregivers that communication really is the key to anything. So I love what I do. We've got some phenomenal caregivers, and we had a meeting the other day, and it was so nice to hear because I had asked each one of them a question, which was, list one thing or more if you have of what you enjoy about working for Sonoran Valley Home Care. And it was so nice because Misty, I'm sorry, my cat's meowing. She's like, food. But it was so nice because every single caregiver said something positive about working for Sonoran Valley. And I'd say the thing that stood out the most was communication. And they said, Angie, I can't thank you and Shelley, our client care liaison. She's absolutely wonderful too. Is that they said that hold on, let me just give her some cat food real quick. It's just right there.
You're fine. You're fine. Oh, there she is.
Misty, go.
Oh my goodness, she's so cute. She walked right by. She made her
That's
debut.
funny. Well, I'm sure the animal lovers that are watching this are just going to appreciate knowing we take care of our babies too.
That's right. That's right.
So, but one of the biggest things that they had said that they really appreciated was the fact that we respond to our text messages when they have a question almost immediately. And that is it. And for clients as well, if I have a client that texts me or if somebody calls me after hours, weekends, they will get a hold of a live person. So, it's so
Nice.
frustrating when you get a prompt and then it's like hit number 1, hit number 3. It's like, I just want to talk to a live person. And so please know that you can reach us at any time. And so it was nice.
That was one of the questions I was going to ask you about, like after hours. So you're saying that if let's say that, so my caregivers, I have access to them through my text? Really?
Yes. Well, so we have a portal. So our caregivers, when they arrive to the client's house, there's an app on their phone. They're able to clock in, and which tells us that they've arrived to their clients, and they clock out using the app. There's a family portal that the family is also able to see their calendar, so they know who's coming. They can see if there's any changes. They're able to see their invoices on there. They're able to communicate with us via the family portal. So then we receive text messages. But I always make myself available and give my personal or my company's cell phone out anyway, so they can always text me directly as well. So yeah, so we are always available. And I kind of joke about this, but I like to tell this story because there was a time, this was a few years back when I was in California, and my husband and I were in the Bahamas, and we were on vacation. And so I had somebody that used to call me quite often with referrals, and his name is John, and he says, and he'd always give me referrals that were really challenging. And I said, John, you must really hate me because you're always giving me these difficult cases. And he says, no, Angie, I know that you can handle it. And so knowing what each person needs is the key too, because, then you can introduce other resources. But so he called when we were up at the Bahamas, and I answered the phone. And I said, hey, John. And he goes, hey, Angie, how's it going? What are you up to? And I said, I'm at the Bahamas. And he goes, don't we all wish? And I said, no, I'm really at the Bahamas. So he's like, what are you doing answering your phone? And he's like, it's not like you can really do anything, right? And I said, well, I want my contacts to know that they can get a hold of me anytime. Oh. And so I said, I've just basically what I'll do is I'll get your information and I'm going to route it out to the person that I have on call back in the States, right? So anyways, yes, so you can reach me anytime.
I love that. And just to revisit back to the portal really quickly, that's really nice for families that maybe live out of state.
Absolutely. They love it.
That's fantastic. I love that. And then another thing I wanted to talk about is like running errands, because I know for me, and I don't know why I haven't done this yet, but I haven't gotten my prescription. Everything comes to my home. Even my groceries are delivered to me now, but I haven't set up my medication. So it's always like, oh gosh, I have to go get my medication. And some days when I'm having a flare, I don't even have the energy to get in the car to get to the Walgreens. So if I had in-home care, that could be one of the things that I put on my needs that I could have for my caregiver to take care of for me, correct?
Yes, absolutely. And so they can do errands, grocery shopping, accompany to doctor's visits. In fact, we have a form for everything. So we have a physician summary. So when we have a caregiver that goes and accompanies one of their clients to the physician, they have their vitals that are listed here that they take, when the MA does those for them, the medical assistant. And then they have their notes, if there's any medications that are changed, follow up dates and appointments. And I'm telling you, families just really appreciate that kind of information. And so, of course, our care management also follows up with the families. But so there's quite a bit of services that we offer that, people kind of just take for granted and don't even realize that it's something that
you don't even know. Yeah.
Yes.
And then one of the things too that I saw was, how do you choose the right, like for one of the questions, how do you know which is the right caregiver? Like, how do you choose my caregiver? Like, if you came in and you
Right.
asked me, how would you?
Well, you know, when we do the assessment, and it usually takes about an hour, sometimes, you know, I've been there for 2 hours, and just because we got to talking and it was just a really good experience, but normally it's about an hour. And so in that time, we're asking questions about past, concerns with your health, your diagnosis, any medications you're taking. I mean, we do an assessment on the health, but we also do it on likes, dislikes, hobbies. If there was anything that you could do, what would it be that, that you didn't have any limitations? What would you like to do if you could do it? And if you had somebody that was there to help you attain that, would that be something you would be open to? And we had a family one time that wanted to go on a cruise, and they were going to Alaska, and they wanted to take mom, but it would have been too much to have to take care of her while being on this cruise as well. So they hired a caregiver to go on this cruise. And I'll tell you, every caregiver
I want to
volunteered.
be that caregiver.
So,
Oh.
isn't that amazing?
Yeah, that is,
Yeah.
I would have never thought of that, but that's awesome.
Exactly. So, it's really nice knowing that, we can go anywhere, we can do anything. And we do provide care also, outside of the home, obviously, but in assisted living communities as well. Some of the group homes have hired us.
What does
And
that look like for the group homes when they hire you? What does that look like?
well, usually it's because they have their own caregivers, but sometimes families, or even like with assisted living, they might have someone that is maybe a little bit more, a higher level of care, because there might be a lot more advanced dementia, Alzheimer's, or they're combative, or they're wanting to get out of bed, so they need to have somebody that's going to be there and monitoring them 24/7. So they have people there that are caring for them in the group home, that's providing them their meals, but we're basically coming in as sitters. So, and we do the same thing we had one just recently in a skilled nursing facility. And this was a gentleman that was combative, and, the nurses or the CNAs, they cannot sit there with him, or any patient for a 24/7 period.
Yeah.
And, so we were just in there with them in the room, and kind of just comforting them and talking to them and redirecting and getting him some water, or, just trying to make him comfortable. And if it was something that a nurse needed to take care of, maybe he was in pain, or we would go and, get the nurse to come in. And so it was just an extra, set of eyes there for them. And the family felt.
Wow, I love that. So then that takes me one step further. Like, so my father, he passed away last April during the height of COVID. And of course, nobody could get in the hospitals, but had it not been COVID and he was in Florida, if I known about this service, I could have had caregivers that could have gone to the hospital and sat with him when he was admitted.
Exactly.
Wow.
Absolutely. And we are one of the few that do provide care to COVID patients or clients.
You
And
do.
yes. And what we do is, because we cannot have a caregiver that's done, is cared for a patient with COVID and have them care for someone who is not, because we won't obviously want to expose somebody else. So we have specific caregivers that do work with COVID patients only. So, because obviously nobody else who can care for them, and not even family. So that's when they hire us. And I'm telling you, it's been really tough with this whole COVID thing, but
Been really tough. But that's why I feel like even more than ever, like always we need to know about your services. And I feel like I just want to like shout it out to everybody that I know, because it's so needed. And then especially with the COVID, I mean, that's phenomenal that you guys can go in there and care for family members.
exactly.
Wow.
And we make sure that they all have their PPE equipment. So they do gown up and have their gloves and their masks and their hand sanitizer. And families have just been really, really grateful knowing that we've had somebody who's been able to care for them, knowing that they're COVID, because, it's been really, really tough. So, but on that too, I also, when families ask, how are you going to pick the caregiver for me? How do I know it's going to be the right one? And so in asking all of those questions and then spending time with that person, because I tell, it's usually the adult children that call us. And so I let them know that I really want them and mom or dad to be a part of that assessment, because it allows me to see the family dynamics. It allows me to see the limitations. How far are they able to ambulate? Are they a fall risk? And often we just go off into other topics, and it tells me a lot about, where they were from, their past profession, what they used to do. We went in one time and did this assessment, and this house was absolutely amazing because every wall was covered with a painting, and the client used to paint.
Wow.
Painted in years because she was caring for her husband. So when we came in to do the assessment, we were there to care for him. She was completely independent. But I said to her, how would you like to start painting again? If you had even, how long would it take you to, she said, honey, if I had just 4 hours a week would make a big difference, that I could do that, so, anyways, we try to encourage also activities, because it's easy to become complacent when you're caring for somebody in a home. So when we find out some other activities, and I had this the other day, oh my goodness, I have to share this. We have this caregiver, and her name is Cherie, because I want to give her credit for this. But she's caring for a little gentleman that is going through a lot right now. His wife is not in the home, she's in a hospital. But so he's going through a lot of anxiety and loneliness, and so she's been asking him, like, what kind of music does he like? What are the things he used to do? And so she sent me a little screenshot of a list of songs that he said that he liked, or type of music, country music, things that he enjoyed doing. And she downloaded these songs and put it on her little playlist. And which, we always encourage with our caregivers, because you can do YouTube videos, or music. It's those little things that make such a big difference. And so when I saw that, I just thought that was wonderful. We've had caregivers that have made, ornaments for Christmas, and had the client's picture in the middle with a magnet and put it on the refrigerator, and it just lit their face up. Or we just don't want to encourage all kinds of activities. It helps with their mental stimulation. It helps with their morale. And, so it's just something we really enjoy doing. But yeah, so that's how we pick and choose our caregivers, is just finding out and spending that time and asking them questions aside of the health questionnaires, more.
I love that. And then one thing that you did touch on was caregiver burnout, and that is so huge. And one of the things that I didn't really realize, a lot of the members in my support groups, their spouse ends up, when they have the chronic illness, being that primary caregiver. And I mean that makes sense to me, but it's really hard sometimes for the spouses to carry that burden. And
Right.
So, can you speak on that a little bit?
Yes, well, and often we do get hired on just to give, like I said, respite care. And so often, again, people are a little bit leery because they feel like they're going to have some stranger in the home. And but once they get us in there, I'd say 99.9% of the time when I do a phone assessment, I'm talking to them on the phone, and I'm, of course, the first question is, what are you charge? And so, and we're pretty comparable with other companies in the area, but I always like to ask questions first, because the level of care, the price may be different depending on the level of care. And so when I ask them a few questions so that I can give them a better quote, it's really just listening to them. And, I'm asking them questions about how they're dealing with this. What are some of the signs and symptoms? Where can we help? Where do they feel that they're, having the most difficult time? And it's almost like they're so glad that they got to talk to somebody and just listening. And so at that point, they're just like, they didn't realize just by listening to themselves talk, how much help they really do need. So as we come in and we do the assessment, and then we start the plan of care with them, they say to me, I wish I would have done this a long time ago, because I probably wouldn't be as stressed, or I wouldn't be, had such a burnout, or I wouldn't be so frustrated. And there's just a lot of tears too, because they feel like, I'm sure you've heard the martyr syndrome. It's hard because they love whether it's their mom, their dad, their spouse, who they're caring for, but yet they don't want to take that time away from them because they feel obligated to take care of them. But we're all human. So what happens? They end up getting burnt out. They're frustrated. They're tired. And so that's where we can step in and say, it's okay. How about today you just be a daughter and spend time with mom, being a daughter and not a caregiver. And there's just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Get it.
absolutely.
You really get it. So, and the other thing I wanted to touch on as well is because families, as they're asking questions about, our rates, they vary. And I know a lot of home care companies, they can be between 25 to 35, depending on that. And we're kind of like in the middle. But the thing is, I try to explain to them too, is that so what you're receiving for that price is the peace of mind, knowing that you have somebody that is trained, that is screened, that you have a company that is going to be taking on that liability. And I know a lot of times, families will want to hire privately because it costs a lot less. Or we'll have families that call, and again, they're screening and they're just going down a list and they're calling different companies, which I think is a good idea. Because as I tell them on the phone, I said, this is probably one of the biggest decisions you're going to make. You're not just, buying a pair of shoes. This is mom or this is dad. So you want to feel comfortable with the company that you choose. And then I give them a list of questions to ask. And they're kind of surprised that I'm helping them ask other companies questions. And I said, whether you go with us or you go with another company, go with whoever you feel the most comfortable with, because you want to make sure, number one, that they are employer based. And the reason why I say this is because and this is something that a lot of families don't really understand the difference, because they assume that if they're calling a company, then that must mean that they're employees of the company, and that is not necessarily true. And there's nothing wrong with hiring somebody. So I'm going to go into what is when I say employer based, because there are companies that have independent contractors. So basically what they'll tell a family is that you can either choose to have an employee, which is this much money, or you can have an independent contractor, which is this much money. But the family doesn't realize that if they hire or use the independent contractor through a company, that they are now open for all liability, because they are not going in as an employer or an employee. So basically what that means, that if that independent contractor gets hurt, maybe it's a back injury, maybe mom falls and gets hurt, maybe, and I'm just going to give you scenarios, because of course we don't want any of this to happen, but it does, unfortunately, and it has. Maybe theft, maybe abuse, maybe, and that's not saying anything bad about a company that does have that. I'm telling you this just because I want everybody to be educated, know what kind of questions to ask, know what to look for, whether you're hiring somebody privately or whether you're going through a company. And that's another handout that I have here, and it's talks about, what are my choices? So your choices are basically is that you can hire somebody privately. And this could be somebody that could be a family, could be a friend. It could be maybe you put an ad, online or Craigslist or something, and you hired somebody there. So basically what happens then at that point is it leaves the family to have to make the decisions to do everything that a company would do. So now they have to screen the caregiver. They have to check the references. They have to run the background. And I imagine they would have to then purchase a drug screen to get them to, do that. And ask, are you CPR and first aid certified? Are you willing to go and get a TB test? This is a lot of work.
A lot.
It's a lot of work to do that. And so then what happens if you do end up hiring a family or a friend and things aren't working out? It's awkward. How are you going to bring that to, maybe this is not going to work out and still feel like you can keep that relationship? So we're hiring a company, we are the liaison. So families will tell us, well, I think maybe this might not be a good match, or maybe the caregiver, we would like for her to do this instead of that. And we're always going to want to try to communicate so that we can keep that same caregiver, because sometimes it's just redirecting. And I had a little lady that said, I just don't think this is going to work. This caregiver, I mean, she's nice and everything, but I just don't think it's going to work. And so, when I kind of dug a little bit, and I'm like, well, what is it, exactly that you feel that you're not happy with? Or she said, well, she does not know how to set a proper table. She doesn't know how to put the forks on this side and then, and the salad and I'm like, that's an easy fix. I said, why don't we do it together? And it was done. It was like, I got to learn how to do it. She knew how to do it. And so I grew up on tortillas, so I never knew a fork. I was like, but yeah, so that's one thing, like I said, is hiring privately. The other thing is hiring somebody that's stating they're an independent contractor. And again, so one of the things I have in this this outline for anybody that would like to utilize this is, and this is a direct from the IRS website. I don't know if you're able to see that. So there's 20 questions. It's called the IRS 20-point checklist, independent contractor or employee. So if you ask yourself these questions and you answer yes, that means that you are an employer and need to take the responsibility as an employer. And because to be perfectly honest, there is no such thing as an independent contractor when it comes to caregiving, because you are having to tell them what time to be there. So anytime you're having to give somebody direction, you are now an employer.
Okay.
And what time to be there. You're telling them, what to do for mom or dad. You're giving them direction. Maybe they have to chart because you want notes in. So you really are giving them all of that direction. So for somebody to say that, they are an independent contractor is really a big liability. I've had families say, oh, well, we're paying her cash and it's much less expensive. So I think we're going to go that route instead. And that's fine, because everybody can't afford to pay, an agency. And I get that. And so, but what I like to do is educate them a little bit and say, okay, if you're going to hire somebody privately, I would suggest that you take these steps to protect yourself. So number one is you want to contact your CPA and have them calculate what it would cost for your deductions, your payroll taxes, Social Security, things, so that you're paying that employee correctly. You want to have workers' comp insurance in case that employee hurts themselves. And they said, oh, well, my homeowner's insurance will cover that. And I said, well, actually, it does not. And people don't realize this. So homeowners insurance will only cover somebody that gets hurt if it's, let's say, for example, somebody who comes and cleans your pool once a month or once a week, a landscaper. But if you've got somebody who's a domestic worker that's coming in on a regular basis, like daily, regular homeowner insurance policies do not cover it. So you need to contact your policy and have an additional rider insurance added to that. So that would cover it. So again, it's a lot to have to do, but you can do it and hire somebody privately, but be safe about it by taking these steps. And I had a lady come to me one time and she said, Angie, I hired a friend from a friend, and everything went really well. But it seemed like for whatever reason, this particular caregiver was asking us for a raise every 3 months. She goes, I really feel like she was taking advantage of us. And again, I'm only sharing this because there are some phenomenal caregivers out there that work because it comes from the heart and it's not about money. But again, this is about protection. So she said that she had asked for a raise quite often, and she goes, and you know what, we kept giving it to her, and we were actually paying her more than what we would be paying a company like yourself to, for have a caregiver agency. And she said, and the reason why is because we did not want to go through interviewing people all over again and going through the hiring process and the screening, and mom loved her. And so we just wanted to, stay with her. She said, but then she started bringing her husband over and her children over and her family, problems. And then her and her husband got divorced, and then they filed for divorce. Then they filed for bankruptcy. Then she ended up writing checks in her own name. And she said it was an absolute nightmare. Yeah. And she said, I kid you not, we had to get to a point where we just had to let her know that we were just going to have to let her go. It wasn't going to work anymore. And she said that the following, this was like during the midweek, I guess it might've been the following day or so, but anyways, it was still within that week's time that she claimed that she had hurt her back. And it turned out that she had a workers' comp case in another state. And all she had to say was that it was aggravated while on the job. Well, since she was paying her privately, she now got an attorney. She sued the family for back injuries. She said, my house went into a lien. I had to spend $200,000 in attorney fees, medical expenses. I wish I could have had her write a little story for me, and I would use her, as the advocate for people that are trying to, it just bothered me because I just felt like this lady was really, taken advantage of. And it's unfortunate because she said, had I known all of this that you're sharing with me now, I would have taken those steps to protect myself and my family. So anyways, like I said, there's different ways, either, going with the company, doing independent contractor, but do it right, protect yourself, ask questions, of companies. How long have they been in business? How do they hire their caregivers? Where do they find their caregivers? How do they train their caregivers? Do they have somebody that comes in and does supervisory visits? Which we do. We come in unexpectedly. They never know when we're coming. We go through our little binder and we check their notes to see, how they're documenting. We communicate with them. Also, again, the benefit of having a home care company is that you have a pool of employees to fall, if somebody calls in sick or is on vacation, then, we're going to send somebody in their place. So there's a lot of benefits in using a home care company. And is it a little more costly? Yes, it is. But again, it's I see it as an investment into something or someone that is the most important thing to you in your life. We don't like paying car insurance. It's there in case we need it, right? So
I like just to add on that, Angie, I feel like just knowing things like, had my dad had somebody in the home with him when he was falling all the time, we could have prevented some of these falls that ended him into the emergency room, into the hospital, and then he has medical bills. Like there's such a peace of mind, and there's so many other costs that you can avoid by bringing in that in-home care. So I think that that's something that we have to remember too, that it really does help avoid those other circumstances as well.
It does. And when people come to us, they are they're so overwhelmed. They don't even know where to start. And, having a professional to be able to kind of guide them through that process and make recommendations is huge. And again, here's another one of my little guides that I like to hand out to, and I give these to social workers, or I can email them to families, but it's from hospital to home. And it basically is a guide that once your loved one is either in the hospital or they've transitioned into a skilled nursing facility, what do you do in the process how do you get them home? And so this is a really good guide on the different phases. There's like phase 1, 2, and 3 in here. Roles and responsibilities, questions to ask. You know, I mean, how do you know what to expect when they're going to get ready to come home? And it really is. I just, if there's any way that I can help you at all, I'll make it as easy as I can.
I love that. Well, and I love that you mentioned the social workers, because I actually work closely with several social workers, and I'm going to be sharing this with them. And so I'm excited that you touched upon that, because, you know, that discharge planning is huge. Like, there's a lot of that goes into that. And so when they are doing their discharge planning, are they able to reach out to you, or how does that work? Like,
Yes, absolutely. So I actually work with quite a few of discharge planners and case managers. And so it helps us to plan that, you know, collaborate on that plan of care before they come home. So it may be that I've met with the adult children at home, especially right now, they're not allowing us to go in and meet, you know, with a lot of these different facilities. But this way, because part of our assessment is to do a safety eval. So, and then find out if there's any equipment. So before discharge, I may tell them, you know, we need a wheelchair in place, or we, you know, whatever specific DME equipment it may be, helps them. And then just, it's like a puzzle. We all have a piece in it. And talking with them before they get home, we also have our caregiver go and meet with the physical therapist if they're going to be ordering PT. So then that caregiver can follow those same directions and, you know, those instructions from day one from the actual physical therapist. And so it just makes it a nice transition from, you know, hospital to home. And then often, we will pick them up from the skilled nursing facility or home and drive them, you know, safely home, pick up their prescriptions, bring them back home. And so, you know, it's, again, just a really nice transition for them.
well, that's really nice, because that's a question I get a lot as well too, is, you know, how are they getting home? And, you know, when they're going to come on palliative services or even hospice services, until they're admitted, they're not really, you know, Medicare's like, oh, don't pay for transportation. But that's nice to know that with the in-home care that you guys can, that's a nice alternative to have into
Yes.
both their insurance, and sometimes it takes forever through insurance to get it coordinated. And yeah, that's nice.
Exactly. Right.
Really nice to know. I noticed that we have Camille, and then it says Care, so I'm not sure who that is, but do you guys have any questions for us? I'd love to hear from you.
No, I don't have any questions at this time. And it's my coworker, but she quickly left. She got a phone call from PD.
Oh, did she?
Okay.
We're quite busy.
Are you in the
I
field?
have 2 more minutes. Yes, ma'am. I'm looking at your name. I'm like, Angie Rash. I think I contacted you before, right? Or
Really?
I think your name was familiar
Well,
about.
why didn't I hire you?
Camille, what do you do?
I must have lost something in there, because
Oh.
I'm really glad that you're here and a part of this. You are a caregiver of a family member, or?
No, ma'am. I'm an investigator with Adult Protective Services.
Oh, okay. Wonderful.
Joined us.
Yes,
Yeah.
I finally get to put a face.
Right. Same thing.
Oh
I
my
said.
God.
Okay, now it makes sense. Yes. Okay.
Oh my
And you
God.
know, and I'm so glad to hear that you are a part of this today too, because part of our orientation, and we also want to make sure that we tell our caregivers signs and symptoms and what to look for in elder abuse, and
Right.
you know, because we're all mandated reporters.
Right.
So
Right.
thank you for being a part of this.
You're welcome, and thank you. I'm learning a lot of stuff. So I would like to get a copy of those documents that you have as well, so I can share.
Absolutely,
as
Camille.
well.
We'll get those
Thank
over to
you.
you, and I have your email, but also I'm starting a website, Camille. So
Okay.
you will be able to access this video to anybody that wants to view it. You will be able to
Okay.
access and download the forms I'm in the process of getting it up and going, but I should have both SleepWorks, because I talked to an in-home sleep testing owner and provider, and then now Angie's, she's my second person. But as I'm working through the resources, you will be able to go to the website and grab all that information. So
Awesome. Thank you so
next, we
much.
got to get you on here, Camille.
Yes.
Well, I'm sorry to
Abs-
interrupt, but I have to leave now. I
Okay.
was supposed to have my training at 1, but they said 2, so it's 2.
Okay, thank you for joining
Thank
us.
you.
Have a good
Bye. Thanks for
day.